Yay!
Yay!
It
It worked!
Gosh.
Okay, good. All right, so let's get everybody's stuff out so we know what we're talking about.
And I'm willing to summarize.
Okay.
Unless somebody else wants to do it.
Oh, was that you not wanting to do it?
I'm totally willing. I don't want to write something
Wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be the one that kind of like the moderator if you want.
Okay.
Okay, what does that leave me with?
You can post it. I'll send you the link. I don't know. I guess we just...
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to post it on YouTube. And then Rachel will be the moderator. And Jody, you'll turn in the summary and
with the link
to YouTube. Right. And I'll be summarizing. Okay.
Okay, so perfect. So when we're done, someone will send me the link to YouTube? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So did everybody have a chance to read or go over the chapter 6?
Yep.
Yeah.
And you guys all watched the video?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm just on the 3rd page of chapter 6, which is page 133. It's the table 6.1.
Okay.
So, just looking at the first one, making meaning of adversity. When you guys were watching the video of the family, how do you think he took that adversity? And well, okay, I'll say it from my point of view. Like he asked everybody what they were there for, and then he took that adversity, and then that's what they talked about it, but kind of turned it into a way to where they were able to start relating to each other and kind of get all of their feelings out into the open.
Yeah. And something else that he did too was that he kind of normalized the situation, or he put it more in context. So instead of making it look like suddenly Jimmy was acting out and we don't understand why he started to do that, he looked at it and said, so I'm feeling like you moved and he graduated, and so he's trying to establish himself and you guys aren't around as much, so things changed in your family dynamic, and so now it's affecting how your family handles stress. I don't know if you noticed that. And he normalized it by saying a lot of different times he'd say, oh yeah, when my daughter left, or when all of my grown kids went off to college or something, I really felt this, and I agree with you. And tried to make them feel like they weren't crazy for feeling what they felt.
Yeah, because it was something that he had already gone through, and so he took his own experiences and said, you know, this is what we experienced. It's the same thing, and it's, you know, a lot of families experience that. Their kids get older and they stay at home and want to be their own person.
Well, and I liked how he took everything in and then said, so what I'm hearing is, and restated it to find out if he was really understanding what they were saying. And I think sometimes they weren't even sure what they were feeling until he was restating it.
Right.
And then kind of pondered a bit what they were really feeling. So I thought he did a good job that way as he was trying to figure out the scenario with each person.
Yeah.
I like that he really empathized with them too. Like with each person, he went from each individual and got their story, their side of the story, and said, oh man, that must feel terrible. And like he didn't say, you know, he didn't ridicule
you're dumb for feeling that. Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, well, you shouldn't feel like that because they feel like this. But he was like, no, I can see why you feel like that. And he would go and just totally empathize with each person and validate their feelings.
Yeah. Well, and he also made it so that he took everybody's feelings and they shared it like they were sharing with him, but it was really they were sharing with everybody.
With each other, yeah.
Yeah.
I was just trying to read the fourth one on meaning of adversity, the appraisal of crisis, distress and recovery, and then facilitative versus constraining beliefs. I thought that he really facilitated. I kept writing down that he's kind of trying to find a foundation that all of them can agree on, that they can start building at. And instead of saying, okay, so here's what we're going to do, he said, so I'm kind of feeling like maybe you guys are leaning towards this kind of solution. Can you explain to me more what you're thinking about that? And they didn't ever come up with a specific way of approaching it, but I'm trying to find what I wrote down when I saw it. But he took all their ideas and he let them have their own ideas instead of saying, I'm the therapist, I know everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like he had them set up a time where they would get together and talk about things. You know, like the husband and wife were going to go on a date, and then the other two were going to go and hang out so that they could talk about things, which is probably something that they hadn't done in a long time.
Yeah, just to boost their cohesion, bring them back in as a family, because it seems like after the move, they kind of spread out a little bit, and they didn't know how to get back.
Yeah.
Well, and he also really helped clarify. I think the mom and the son were having different feelings than what anyone else was feeling in the group. And he helped identify those and helped each of those individuals and the entire family see why mom was turning into a grizzly bear, as he phrased it, you know, because she's fearing that her sons could be dead, and the son, anytime mom starts yelling, feels like they don't love him.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so those were two things that hadn't even come up except in the counseling.
and the mom's really worried, but the dad's sitting back going, well, you know, I'm sure he's fine. But I'm sure, like, if it was me, I'd be freaking out, going, why aren't you freaking out?
Yeah, I really liked, and it's not quite in the section, but he seemed to identify the relationships that were really in crisis. And that's what he was working on. You know, suddenly mom and dad are going on a date, and you know, dad and son are spending some one-on-one time, and the dad didn't look too excited to go to the skate park, but, you know, he just saying you need to spend some time with your son, and, you know, and the brother and sister, because he felt like she was turning more into a parenting role that she shouldn't be. I felt like he took each of those relationships that we keep studying in these crisis models and made sure that he was helping do what needed to be done to strengthen those.
Well, and he did a good thing too by not saying, oh man, like this is a really big problem. If you guys don't fix this, you're going to get into a lot of trouble. He almost, the way he approached it was so subtle that you can't really tell that he's finding those. When you just said that, I thought, oh man, I guess that's true. I didn't even look at it as their relationships are in crisis. I was just saying, oh, well, he was looking for the boundaries of the relationships and how they interacted. And he did a good job of making it so easy that they didn't realize that maybe they were in a really bad situation relationally.
Yeah.
Huh.
Well, that would go along with, like, having to be flexible.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So taking them and saying, well, what do you think about going out? Or, you know, or then he had him, like, switch seats. And he's like, well, why don't you, Dad, tell him what you're thinking? Or, you know, so, like, he was, with the date ideas and stuff, he would say, why don't we do this? And then he allowed them to say, okay, and they picked the date and what they were going to do. And, you know, they He was very
Right.
flexible, but then he showed the family how they could be flexible as well in adapting to the new changes and learning and growing from them.
And he worked to build on their connectedness. He, oh man, I thought I wrote it down, but he just seemed like he was trying to help them see each other's point of view. I think when we're in crisis, sometimes it's really easy to get focused on just what we see and not, I don't know, the different perspectives of another person. And so by having them go around and say why they think they're here, what they think they want, how they feel about it, what's motivating them to want to make these changes, by doing that, he was really helping each of them see a different side of the situation, because it's really easy to get in tunnel vision and just focus on yourself. And so by forcing them to step back and look at the bigger picture, he was actually connecting them more.
Yep.
And I think we already kind of mentioned this earlier, but I like that he was just like kind of one-on-one with each person, and he wasn't really having them talk to each other very often. He was more just like talking to them individually, so everyone was hearing it, and no one could say, like, you can't feel those feelings, or
Right.
Those feelings are wrong. He would just tell them to express their feelings, and no one could say that those feelings were wrong. And he, everyone was just validating one another's feelings and saying, okay, well, that's how you feel. And so it was just out in the open, and it wasn't directed at anyone. It was kind of passive, but in a good way, just so that the family felt comfortable, like, I don't know.
Instead of attacking each other.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I thought he did a great job of validating everyone's feelings. Instead of saying, "Mom, why are you getting so upset?" He's, at midnight or something. He was saying, "I can see why you might feel that way." And then he's trying to empathy from the others. Like, wow, if this is how your mom's feeling, then do you see why maybe she's responding this way? I also thought it was really interesting when he had them switch seats, the husband and daughter. The tension between the husband and wife seemed to diminish almost somewhat.
Yeah.
And it was hard to tell in the video, but it looked like suddenly they were holding hands. And
Yeah, that's how it looked to me too. Kind of like they got closer, which is interesting, I guess, from a gospel perspective, just because we always say, it's the husband and wife that's the unit, and then their kids, and then, you branch out from there. And so here, as they were talking in the beginning, it seemed like mom and sister were really on the same team. Mm-hmm. And then there was dad, who was kind of in the middle, like, yeah, I'm worried, but he's okay. And then Jimmy was on the outskirts doing his own thing and feeling like everyone was trying to control him. And as soon as they started to switch the seats, it seemed like that balanced out more. Suddenly the mom and dad were on the same team, and he had them kind of focus on themselves for a minute and make sure that they were on the same page, that they understood where each other was coming from. And then he moved to each of the siblings and how to manage their family and not just the marriage. So I saw that too.
That's great.
Yeah. Well, going on to the next point for the communication process for clarity, it was interesting how he took what they would say and then he would say it back to them, but sometimes, like, not word for word, but just saying, this is what I'm hearing from you.
Right.
And then he would ask if that's if it was correct.
Yeah, he did a great job at reflective listening. Mm-hmm. And just like clarifying, or as it says in the chapter, clarifying ambiguity.
Yeah.
And just kind of, I don't know
Well, because
would start out by saying, I don't know, and then they would say their feelings, but they didn't seem very sure of those feelings until he would repeat it back to them exactly what they said, and they're like, yeah, I guess I do feel like that.
Yeah. Well, and he gave them the option to say, yes, that's what I meant, or no, that's what I wasn't, right?
Right.
He always
Right.
seemed to get it, right?
He always led with that. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Or, okay, so what I'm hearing is this. Is this what you mean? And that gives them a chance to say, no, you're dead off, or you're hitting it on the head. So that was really good.
Well, and that seemed when they opened
something.
So they'd kind of thrown out a little bit, and then as he clarified, then it seemed like that's when they opened up and shared more of their.
So validating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. He did a good job. Did any of you guys notice? I was just looking at the notes that I took while I watched it. That when they started to kind of look at where to go from there, he asked them what they did in the past. I'm trying to remember exactly what he said, but he turned to the dad and he asked something about, in the past, how did you guys talk, or something like that. And I just remember thinking, well, that's a really good thing to do, because then you're looking at what the family is already using. It kind of made me think of the taking stock in the double ABCX model, where you kind of look at what resources you have. So he was asking them as a family, specifically the dad, to look at what they've been doing and see if there were any changes they could make, or expansions or something.
Well, like the dad said, they used to talk in the car, but they hadn't done that in a while. So he said, why not go for a drive? Right? So
Problem solved.
Yeah. Well, if you were already doing that, right?
I think he did a good job at keeping like pleasurable interaction with them, and like keeping it a little bit humorous. Like he kind of joked a little bit throughout it. Just like occasionally he would kind of joke about something, but I feel like it kept the whole attitude really light with everyone, and I think that helped to keep everyone really open. And I think he kind of taught the family that, it can be humorous. Like even something so difficult for the family can be humorous, and it will help them to open up and not be so serious about, such a seemingly insignificant or small situation, because I felt like it was not a huge crisis in my opinion. I'm sure it may be different for their family, like trying to deal with this problem, but yeah, I think he just helped them to see the humor in it, and I don't know, I think that helped to keep everybody a little more open.
Well, it's probably the first time they all sat down to talk about it and didn't have anybody screaming at each other at the end.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it appeared that the son kind of was very closed off when they first got in there. I think he felt like everyone was kind of attacking him, and that the counselor would soon be attacking him too, but the counselor never went there. And so he kept the humor in, and he kept it very light, and instead he was validating feelings, and he said, okay, well, I'm not going to be able to solve this for you guys. You guys are the experts of your own family. You guys are going to need to come up with how we're going to validate and respect each other's feelings, but never did he attack anyone. Instead, he validated everyone's feelings and said, okay, that there's still a problem, and that problem's going to need to be solved amongst you, and I'm here to help facilitate it, but never did he take sides or...
He didn't blame anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He didn't say, this is your problem, so now we're going to fix it. Right? He didn't lay blame. Well, if you just call, right?
Right, that's all. I mean, he could have said that. He could have said, well, Jimmy, you should just call. Tell him where you're at. Problem solved.
Yeah.
But But something that I think I remember him saying, or at least I wrote it down, but he recognized that the family understands themselves more than he understands them. And so, I mean, as a third party, he's only getting what they tell him. And so being able to recognize that and saying, look, you guys are the ones with the power. You're the ones who are ultimately going to fix this. I'm not going to do anything really. I'm just helping you talk about it.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it's
sorry.
no, go ahead, Jody. I think you're gonna say what I was gonna say, so go ahead.
I was gonna say, even if he told Jimmy, just call, and then your parents are gonna lay off. Well, how many times has Jimmy heard that? You know, from his dad and from his mom. Jimmy, just
Yeah.
call. Then we're gonna be okay. But he doesn't do it. So what is a third party saying? Guess what, Jimmy? Just call. Is that going to change his behavior? It's not.
Yeah.
No.
And he would just feel like there was another person saying that his feelings were wrong. And then he would just shut down even more.
Yeah.
But somehow getting the family to resolve the conflict together is getting everyone on board. So everyone feels like they have some control, that their feelings are validated. Even if Jimmy ends up calling, somehow it's going to end up being his idea in the end.
Right.
And so then he'll follow through. Or maybe he doesn't, but they have a different plan.
Yeah.
I think the point was just to let them make the plan. You know how sometimes when you want your kids to do something, you have to, I guess, frame it in a way to get them to come to that conclusion on their own.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that idea. The counselor, Michael, I think is what he said his name was. He was framing it, the situation, in a way that allowed the family to see, oh, look, like we can do this, we can try to change that, and I think that goes along with not making Jimmy feel like he's the odd one out. Instead of sticking with how the majority of the family was already seeing him, he was switching the view and saying, look, nobody's really the focus here. We're just trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Well, and with his age change and all of that, as the dad said, he's transitioning from being a child to a man. I mean,
he wants to be on his own.
Yeah, and that is a big change for parents, and he did a good job acknowledging that. But that's a big job for mom. That was a huge trial for me when my daughter went off to college. I wasn't ready. She was ready. I was the one not ready.
That's how it was in my house.
Jimmy's ready, and his mom's not ready, and it takes a bit for everyone to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like you were saying, Sarah, is that you? Okay, I'm like trying to look at the names. Okay, like you were saying that he didn't place the blame on anyone. I felt like he really helped the family see that it was everyone's problem, that it wasn't just the mom's problem or Jimmy's problem or whatever. It was the whole family's problem. They all had a problem with this thing, like, with Jimmy not telling everyone where he was. So it really was a family problem, and they had to solve it together.
Do you remember I'm not even going to remember which reading it was, in one of the first ones where it started to present kind of how therapists' view of family changed, I think was the goal. And man, I wish I could remember. I used it in my Prezi whatever, but basically it says recognizing that the family is so multifaceted and there are so many different levels that you can't just look at one thing at one time and come up with a solution that'll cover everything. You have to be able to approach it, and I think he was kind of talking about it a little in this chapter, about how there's 3 different ways to approach it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, it just stuck out to me, like the family is so dynamic that there's no way that you can just look at one part of it and say, oh, problem solved, everything will be okay. We fixed this one part and now you'll never have a problem with it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we're going through this a whole lot faster than I thought we would.
I know.
We talked
But
for like
we
an
have been
hour.
online for an hour and 20 minutes.
Oh man.
I know it says to use the last 15 minutes to go over the summary. Ooh.
Yeah.
Which is going to be very
We better bulk it up, guys.
short-handed and
I
broken
do
up.
think he did a great job of installing hope. So
Yeah.
I think when the family left,
They saw the light.
yeah, they saw the light. You know, they didn't think that they were going to stay in that mode of conflict forever, that there was going to be a resolution, even though he didn't give the solution to them. I'm sure, or I think it's possible that the parents, if they hadn't done counseling before, thought that they were going to go and leave and the children were going to be fixed.
Yeah.
Or at least that's what I would want, you know, but it didn't happen that way. But he had given them hope on how they were going to resolve this.
Yeah, at the end, I didn't feel like they had resolved the conflict, but that he had given them a way that they could talk about it and resolve it themselves. Right?
Yeah.
He gave them those tools where they could do it and talk about it in their own home or in their car. You know, and not with him saying, oh, that sounds like a good idea, but something that they would all agree on that
Right.
could happen.
It actually made me kind of think of 2 things. One thing, my advocacy teacher always says, it's kind of annoying sometimes, but he always says that I'm not here to make you slothful servants. I want you to be proactive and be on top of it, and a lot of our assignments are designed in a way that we have to take the initiative and really go out and do our own thing. Using the tools that he's provided, but we have to do it ourselves. And that made me think of the fisherman and the fishing pole. You know, if you give a fisherman a fish, you can feed him for a day, but if you give him a pole, he can feed himself. And so instead of spoon feeding, that's another term that my advocacy teacher uses, instead of spoon feeding the family, Michael just, I don't know, he did a really good job of just twisting it so they could see that they already had some tools, that they had what they needed to fix the problem, even though it seemed like it was unfixable when they came in.
Yeah.
And like you said, Jody, it would have been nice if he just fixed them and called it good, but I guess that's probably not the best way to do it. And he did it the best way, but
I think one of those tools that he helped them to see was communication, because they really weren't communicating well. Like, that was really the whole basis of the problem, is that Jimmy wasn't communicating. But just being in that session and communicating with one another was probably the most that they've talked about the issue and really talked to each other in a long time. And so they saw that they could still communicate with one another, even though all these changes happened that, you know, made things more difficult in their family. They recognized that they still had the ability to communicate, and that was a big factor in solving their problems.
Yeah, I think he really took it. Now this is the second one to the bottom. You know, he focused on their goals and what he wanted them to accomplish, and then gave them steps that they needed to take, and then they set up a time to talk about it the next week. And they talked about successes that they had already had, and that they could learn from what they were going through and what they had already done. So even though he didn't resolve it, he said, here are some steps that you need to take, and let's talk about what happens. So you know that they're not going to go home and then just show up the next week going, well, we decided not to do anything. You know, they're going to go back and say, this is what we worked on. Because that would be really a waste of money.
Yeah. Well, I guess if you were expecting to be spoon-fed, then you might just keep waiting for him to tell you what to do.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like they were kind of expecting that spoon feeding thing
At
in
first,
the
at
beginning.
least, yeah.
Like they were all kind of like, I don't know, like you tell us.
Fix it for us. You know better.
Yeah.
But then if he had, I think it might have improved things for a week or 2 weeks, and then
Yeah.
you look at their family a month later, they're back in the same routine.
It would have been like a Band-Aid solution.
Mm-hmm.
Right, here, this will work for like a day.
Yeah. Actually, I've had this therapist as my professor on campus. He is as good as he seems. But one of the things that he always talked about was that he would often get people who'd been to counseling before, multiple times, who would have that kind of, oh, we're fine for a couple months or a couple weeks, or maybe they'd make it a whole year, and then that same problem would crop up again, and they wouldn't know how to fix it, and so they'd go back to counseling. And maybe, I don't know, maybe counselors do it on purpose. Maybe they like the business. I don't know. But it seemed to me that every time Michael talked about it, he just really wanted to help families, and he really wanted to help them help themselves. And I think as a professional, that's a great approach. You know, not to be in it for the money, because if they see that you're helping them with this one problem and giving them the tools to help themselves, if they have another problem, maybe unrelated or slightly related, that they just don't know how to manage, they'll call you anyway, because they know that you know what you're doing, and they know they can trust you to give them the best care. I would call it is care. I don't know. He always stressed it when he did these different scenarios, and I always just felt like, man, he'd be a good counselor to go to.
Yeah. Well, like at the end of the reading, didn't it talk about how some people think that you go to a therapist and then you're in therapy for life?
Yeah.
Right? I wouldn't want to do that.
That'd be horrible. That's probably why they don't go to therapy.
I know.
Because they don't want to be there forever.
Like, I know if I had to go, I wouldn't want to go and have them tell me what to do, right? I want it to be like this professor, and then, okay, show me what tools, or, you know, like he showed them what tools they already had, and then this is what you need to do, and how, because you've already done it, so this is how you can fix it.
Yeah, empowers them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely empowering. I mean, we did a simulation once that was kind of similar to this, and even though it was fake, you're walking away from it thinking like, wow, that was really good advice. I think we should try that. So I agree. He's really good at helping them feel like they're in control, and that there is a solution, and that they can find it.
Yeah.
As they work as a team. I don't know. He does a good job. It's a good approach for therapy.
One thing that I didn't mention that I really liked that he did was he refocused their complaints and kind of aimed it towards their feelings instead of like the words that they were saying. So they would, like, I don't know, like in the beginning the sister said something like, she said that her brother was rude and selfish, only cares about himself, and that he's changed a lot. So she's like complaining, and then he's just like, oh, so you feel, and he like totally just refocuses her complaints and says, okay, you're just complaining because this is how you feel. And then she's like, oh, okay. Yeah, I guess that's
you're
right. Yeah. So her complaints were really just coming out of what she was feeling, but she didn't realize it. And so they weren't really facts. They were more just
Feelings.
reactions to her feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I think we might need to finish up. I have to run
I
up to
know.
I have to leave in
ask.
any second.
Oh man.
Okay.
How long have we been?
So I think we started it at 53. So I think we made it 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and at least she knows we tried to start it at
We did,
2.
yeah. I sent her if we'd started on time, if it had worked, then it wouldn't have been a problem.
I think
Okay.
we went through everything.
I know,
Do you
I was just trying to see
kind
if there was
of
anything.
go over the summary then? It
Sure.
says to go over it because you guys have to approve. Oh
Yeah,
man.
let's go over it.
We'll see what I just wrote. I don't even know. I was just like typing and listening at the same time. Okay, so I said the therapist took the adversity and put it more into context. He normalized the situation by looking at the situation and trying to make sense of their feelings and family dynamics. He normalized it by giving his own personal examples and saying that the experiences they were experiencing are very normal in many families. He took everything in and restated it and tried to make sense of what they were feeling. He gave them the opportunity to ponder. He empathized with each person in the group and validated their feelings. He talked to each person individually as if they were just opening up to him, but in reality they were opening up to the whole family. He worked to find a foundation that they could start building at, a common ground. They didn't ever come up with a specific way to approach the solution, but he let them have their own ideas. He had them set up a time that they could get together and talk about things, which was something that they probably had not done in a long time. He helped clarify that the mom and daughter were having different feelings from the father and son. He helped them see that it was normal that the females in the family were feeling so differently from the men. He took each of those relationships that we keep studying in these crisis models and helping sorry, it's like not making sense. Helping to strengthen those relationships that were at risk. The way he approached it was subtle, and they didn't even realize that he was finding those relationship risks. He didn't realize that they were in a bad situation, or they didn't realize that they were in a bad situation in the relationships until he pointed it out. He had them switch seats and get closer to allow them the opportunity to open up and express their feelings. He was very flexible in helping them to find solutions and showed the family that they could be flexible too. He was trying to help them see each other's point of view. When we are in crisis, we often focus on what our point of view is. He helped them to see one another's point of view and help them to see the different perspectives. Instead of, I didn't even finish that thought. He did a great job with validating their feelings. He helped them to get physically closer, and it almost seems as if the mom and dad started to hold hands. From a gospel perspective, he helped switch the seats where the mom and dad were on the same team and that the children were close. He started with the parents and tried to mend their relationships from there. He did a great job at mirroring their words and emotions. He always led with, "Correct me if I'm wrong, is this what you mean?" Once he clarified, they seemed to open up and share more. He helped them to reflect on how they have handled situations in the past. He asked them as a family to look at what they have been doing and see if there were any changes they could make or improvements. He helped keep humor in the situation, which helped everyone to open up. The son felt that everyone was attacking him. He kept the humor in the conversation and helped everyone to recognize that there was still a problem and that the problem needed to be solved amongst them. He didn't blame anyone. He recognized that the family understands themselves more than he understands them. He guided the discussion but did not try to fix the situation. He didn't tell Jimmy that he needed to just call and let his parents know where he was. He framed the situation in such a way that Jimmy was able to see what the solution to the problem could be. He didn't try to make Jimmy feel like the odd man out. He let everyone know that no one was to blame, but that the problem was the whole family's problem. The family is so multifaceted that you can't just approach just one part of it and say problem solved. The family has to realize that there is more to it than just one problem. He did a great job at instilling hope. when the family left, they did not feel that they were going to stay in that mode of conflict. He didn't even leave them with a solution to the conflict, but he gave them the tools, or showed them that they had the tools, that they could solve the problems themselves. And then I just quoted, "I'm not here to make you slothful servants. We have to take the initiative using the tools that we are provided to try to solve things on our own instead of spoon-feeding the family." He helped them to see what they needed to fix the problem. One of those tools was communication. They realized that they were able to communicate and solve their problems on their own. They talked about the successes they had and learned that they could see what worked before. And then we talked about how he would often get the same people that had been to counseling before, and the same problems would arise over and over again. This therapist just really wanted to help families. He focused their complaints and aimed those complaints into what they really were, feelings. And that's pretty much all I have.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
I really do have to sign off now. I'm
okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Bye, Jody.
Goodbye.
Sorry. That's okay. Okay. So
Actually, I'm not sure how to sign off all the way, but
so
I'm just
I
gonna have
think,
to. All right, goodbye.
yeah. Bye.
I was gonna tell her just to go whenever she had to go.
Yeah, just leave. Okay,
Was there
so
anything else that,
for that,
we wanted to
where's
add?
that thought that you left off? The one that ended instead they? Because I bet we could fill it in right now, couldn't we?
Oh yeah.
Where was
In the
it?
middle, somewhere.
Oh yeah. I can't even remember what we were talking about. Like we were just moving from one point to the next so fast. It says
Yeah.
instead of attacking one another, they.
And what did it say before? Like the.
Before that, it says he was trying to help them see one another's view. When we are in crisis, we focus on what our own point of view is. He helped them to see one another's point of view and helped them to see the different perspectives. And then instead of attacking one another, and I think it was just something like, I can't even remember. I mean, we can just leave that out. Like, that's all I had, instead of attacking one another.
Oh. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. I don't know what it is. I was just going to say if we could think of it. Like in context.
I think it was something along the lines that they didn't really have the opportunity to attack one another. Like, he was just opening them up to conversation on their perspective, but he didn't allow them to attack one another.
Right. It wasn't a dialogue between them. I think we said it was a dialogue between him and them. And so instead of getting at each other's throats, they had to kind of keep it, I don't know, appropriate as they were communicating with him instead of each other.
Yeah.
So I guess you could just say that. So instead of attacking each other, he mediated.
Yeah.
Okay, instead of attacking one another, he mediated the conversation and didn't leave much room for them to have I don't know. Yeah. Okay. And I'll go through this and, like, make more sense of it. Like,
relatively good.
Yeah, it does. It sounds nice.
It was so hard to, like,
keep up with it.
We were moving so fast.
I know.
But I'll try to, like, group it into paragraphs and make it make more sense.
Anything that we feel like we need to talk about more? I mean, I think we covered it. I think we just talked about it so quickly that just because she had to go, that we just didn't take up the time. Because we could have expanded a lot more, I think. Huh.
I think we're fine.
Okay.
So it was about 50-ish minutes.
We've got about 10 minutes left.
Okay.
Or 13, like 13 minutes. I don't know. Because when we finally got it to work, it was 12:53, I think, is when I started the broadcast. And so then we talked and talked and talked for about 40 minutes. And that was like 5 minutes ago. So,
Do you guys have more notes or insights that you want to share?
that's what I was trying to look at, if I had anything else. What is this thing? I don't know.
One thing that I did write down in the very, very beginning of the video, he starts out with, like, from the very beginning of their lives. Like, I mean, not birth, but...
No, but he found out their background, and then he tried to get to know each person individually.
Yeah, and he got, like, a timeline of events. Like, he tried to get what happened pre-crisis.
Right.
By saying, like, where are you guys from? Oh, you had a big move. That's really difficult. And got everyone's perspective on the move and what they like doing. And so he kind of got everyone's interest, got to know each person, and then got the underlying story that happened right before this issue came up.
He even asked what they did together as a family. They mentioned that they really liked to camp, but since they moved from Colorado, they hadn't gone camping either.
Yeah.
So, like, the thing that they did to kind of hold themselves together, they weren't doing anymore.
Well, some things that keep popping up over and over in the readings I'm noticing is going back to things that have happened in the past. So, not that they didn't go back very far, but, you know, they had the move and they're in a new place. Yeah. And so, just taking all of that stress, he went back, and they didn't just focus on the one problem that was happening then, but, you know, what was leading up beforehand. Like, even in the readings with some of the stories, they took them back to what happened when they were little, right?
That's true.
So our past has, you know,
a
big influence on what we do in the future.
And they actually talked about that later too. When they established past experience with the family, so you know what tools they were using. He asked them if they used to talk about how the parents had made decisions. Because Jimmy mentioned that he had no direction, that he didn't really know what to do with his life, and so Michael was asking, well, have your parents ever talked about it? And they said that they used to, but then they stopped, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
Kind of the same idea with the camping, is that they used to do it and then they stopped. And I think it's interesting to note that most of it stopped after the move, which was kind of the thing that shook their lives up and changed the dynamics of the family.
Yeah. Really, you take an 18-year-old, and if they don't have any idea about what they want to do in the future,
they're going to screw around.
Yeah, they're going to start bumming around, hanging out with their friends till, 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, it's true. You getting it all, Jason?
Yeah.
Okay. I think if I wrote anything else out.
I was just going to say, I could see if he kept having, like, therapy sessions like that, they would only have to go a few times, right? And it wouldn't be forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't feel like that's one of those things that would last forever, because once he gets older, things might change once she gets older. Things like the siblings.
Yeah.
It might not be as big of a deal to her, but maybe he was just, I don't know. I was thinking about the girls' feelings a little bit more because of moving, like, during her high school years, and then all of a sudden having a brother that, like, wasn't really close to her or involved in her life. And I don't know. I don't even know where I was going with that. I guess I was just pointing out that I was sympathetic to that poor girl that had to be going through all those changes.
Yeah. Huh. I guess another point we can make was the reason why Michael was so successful, because I feel like he was successful, even though they didn't come to a definite, like, here's how you should fix it. I think part of the reason why he was so successful was that he just created a relationship with them really fast. I mean, it goes back to when he opened it by just getting their background, trying to understand each person, seeing what they like. I mean, he even shared stories, and he skateboarded as a kid or something weird like that, and so did the mom. And so trying to make them see in him that he was someone that they could trust, that they could connect with. And then at the same time, he was helping them see that they could trust each other and connect with each other. At least that's kind of how it seemed. And he went through that more as he had them address each other. I think there was a time when he had the dad tell Jimmy why he cared and why he was acting the way that he was acting about Jimmy being out all the time. And just kind of setting that foundation before they got to that point to make sure that everybody felt comfortable talking with one another. And I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess that's it. How do you want to post that? Just because I guess, because I mean, we have our Gmail address, but we could always just put it on that discussion board.
I'll put it on the discussion board and I'll email it straight to Jody. Yeah?
Yeah, that's her name.
I'm so bad with names. Yeah, so I'll email it to Jody directly and I'll post it on discussion board, and you guys can feel free to edit it or add things, and maybe we can just post like an updated version on the discussion board if you guys want to edit it and then just post.
I think it's okay. At least when you read it to us, it sounded fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it covered the gist of what we've talked about.
Okay. So I'll post it up there so everybody can kind of approve of it, and then I'll let Jody know that it's up on the board and email it to her just so that she has it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
and then you can email the link.
Yeah.
So it says one group member should submit the summary and the link.
Yep,
so are we
that's
gonna have
Jody.
Okay.
Yep, that's what she said she wanted to do.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, well, I guess that's it. I'm gonna